Okay, and welcome to Heller Barnes. And of course, we're live, live, live. And that always has the fun that stuff can happen and you get to laugh at us. And Johnny and Paul, welcome to the show. Glad to see you both.
Hello.
Johnny, how's your week been going?
This has been a fabulous week. I'll say one quick thing, and we'll talk about it, all three of us. In our line of work, I find whatever you classify the day doesn't make any difference. No such thing as weekends.
Yeah.
Your Tuesday could be a Sunday. It just, except for church,
True.
I guess that'd be it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But my week's going good. A lot of work. Um,
Are you
a lot
still
of stuff
doing
happening.
books?
Yeah, I'm still gainfully employed. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good that some of us are. So how about telling us about how do you and Paul know each other?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this is my friend Paul Woodson. Um,
Hello. Good to be
he's
here. Thanks for having me on.
no, it's great to have Paul and I have known each other for a lot of years, and interesting, it has nothing to do. No, we never coached with each other or anything. We just became friends, seeing each other on social media, and he lived for a while in Queens, New York, and we got together. We saw each other at a lot of the industry things, and we just kind of gelled. So here we are, gelling from far apart, because now Paul's in. Is it Sacramento?
Sacramento, California.
So a little longer though. You can't get a subway to his house anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just for perspective, I think Paul, you've done roughly last time I checked 400 plus books. Is that even close?
Yeah, that's about right. I have about 70 or 80 under a pseudonym and about 330 under my true name. Or actually, I have a couple of pseudonyms. So, but you put them all together and it's over 400.
Now,
Yeah.
can you tell, is your pseudonym something that you let people, like, do you care now, or do you want people to know both names, or?
I don't generally give it out, but it's easily findable if people want to do the little like detective work. So I'll let people figure it out, but there's clues left all over the place for people who want to know. But
Is it
he's
Paul? Is
pretty
it Paul
popular.
Sunwood? I bet it's Paul Sunwood.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, it's Luop Nazud.
Go
It's
back.
yeah, people see through it pretty quick. But no, I leave little hints on my webpage and stuff about who what that is. When
And
I
it,
first got started, that pseudonym goes back pretty far to the beginning of my audiobook career, just because I was told that was a good idea to separate out certain things. But then, I did a lot of kind of ribald stuff under my real name too, so it really had more to do with what the target audience was rather than what the genre was, if that makes any sense.
well, so
Uh,
my question
so
is, if
you,
you were to restart today, would you also take a pseudonym for some of the stuff, or would you stay with one name?
I think I would still do the pseudonym because it's good to have that slight compartmentalization of the pseudonym for against like your more general work. Like I'll do steamy romance, say under my real name, but it's it's more just what type of romance is it? What kind of audience is it? Uh, is it a really like big name author who isn't trying to keep their stuff locked away? How do I put it? I don't know. Just if it looks like it would be fine for me as Paul Woodson to read this as Paul Woodson without shunting myself into a corner, uh, I'll do it under my real name. I don't. Not that there's anything wrong with the other name. That guy actually may have more fans than me because mostly in the romance and erotica genre, the fans tend to be a lot more vocal and out there online, and you know. So I have many of my friends
Yeah.
who are romance narrators. They have huge fan bases, which is sometimes a little scary. So I'm actually glad I never became a full romance narrator because that world is its own world. But I definitely dabble and dip a
Yeah.
toe into it quite a lot, and people seem to like
Yeah.
those too.
I find the fan bases in the romance erotica world and in the lit RPG Dungeon and Dragon Quest world
Oh
also
yeah.
pretty rabid fans. I mean,
Hmm.
more so because and I'm not really involved in. Yeah, I've done a few erotica romance things, but it's not my cup of tea. Um,
Sure.
but the people who love it, really, I mean, they love it. They just love it, and I think it's a great opportunity to recognize a piece. So that thing is that there's some literature out there
Yeah.
that, and it's okay. I think the fact that people use an assumed name is in no way a judgment on the genre. It's simply a way to
Oh, no, yeah.
separate the two people so that you know, uh, like when I started, I did a lot of kid stuff.
Sure,
Lots.
sure.
So if I was doing erotica as well under the same name, I would hate to think parents get their kids in a car to drive to Disneyland
Right.
and they've got one of my Randy books, the Randy series.
Right.
The Randy
Exactly.
series
Yeah,
by
and
Don Baarns.
that was one of my considerations too. And when I was just starting out, I really didn't know what path it was going to take with audiobooks. So I just decided early on, well, let me create a separate name
Yeah.
just in case, and then I'll,
How did you
see
get
where it
into the
goes.
world of audiobooks
Well,
and
like a lot
acting in
of
general?
people, well, acting is one thing that I studied all the way back in college to be an actor at BU and School of Fine Arts, and pursued a career in New York for years and did a lot of stage and later some TV and film, but mostly stage. Uh, and then audiobooks was much more recent, like 10 years ago. I think I first got into it, and like a lot of people in I guess I call it my generation of entry. I think I got my start through ACX, just like a lot of them, uh, which I found via a SAG video that had like Scott Brick and Hillary Huber and Patrick Fraley. It was like a SAG Foundation video on audiobooks,
Mhm.
and I just watched it. They talked about what they did and what they recommended for people who wanted to give it a try. And so I found ACX. I set up a profile, kind of got started. Probably made a lot of missteps in the beginning, but it was one of those like fake it till you make it moments where I just kept correcting myself until I was getting it right. And I don't mean so much the narration, because I think that was pretty good to begin with, but just all the technical aspects and
Yeah.
the quality and everything else I had to learn, kind of quickly. Uh, yeah, and of course my performance has improved greatly as well. Because being a stage actor, you have to kind of get used to being in front of a mic again, and bringing it back in, making it a lot more low volume
Yeah,
internal
yeah.
monologue. Yeah,
Well, I
but
always
so yeah,
I
go
always
ahead.
coach my audiobook students, actors, that the idea it's more of a cinematic acting than it is theatrical because
Very much so. Yeah,
you're not singing out to row double L there. It's
exactly.
all really internal. So it's a smaller kind of way to act, and it seems to be counterintuitive because it's a theatrical experience, very organic theatrical experience. A
Oh yeah.
script, playing all the roles, but the actual acting of it is totally different. And you, young man, congratulations, were nominated for the most recent Audie Awards for your first Audie.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Well,
that was
what was
very
the book?
exciting.
Tell us about that.
It was sure. It was a novel called Hamlet's Children. It was in the fiction category for the Audies this year, by Richard Kluger, who I believe also lives in California. I've never chatted with him personally, but they sent his award to him, uh, and so that's all I know about him, except that he's mostly done, I think, nonfiction, and he hasn't been a huge fiction author, but
What's the
he's
story of
got some
Hamlet's
videos
children?
out there. So it's fiction, but based on historical events. It's about the occupation of Denmark by Germany during World War II, and it's told through the POV of a that he's now older, but he's telling about his teenage life lived with his Danish relatives from the late 30s into past the end of the war. He's basically he's the child of a Danish woman and an American man born in America, but around age 13, he loses his mother, and he's been estranged from his father. So his only choice is really to move to Denmark with his other relatives and stay with them. So he goes back there. He learns how to speak Danish. He makes friends. He gets really like close with all his grandparents, his aunts and uncles, his cousins, and we get a lot of colorful characters. And it's actually there's quite a bit of lightheartedness and humor in the story, even though, the Nazi invasion is
Yeah.
kind of dark. But at the same time, the Danish
I
side of that story, it's about it's about the least it's about the least dark occupation of all the ones the Nazis did in World War II. They actually saw the Danes as like their brothers, right? Their
Yeah.
compatriots. It's like you should be happy that we're here. It was that kind of thing. So we're going to treat you a little nicer. But of course, they did relative to the other countries they took over. But
Yeah. The
the
happy
the
side
the
of a
harshness,
Nazi occupation. Yeah.
it's not
Much like we're
happy. No,
having
I
here in
mean
the United
the
States. Yeah.
right. The happy, lighthearted stuff is with his family, not with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Nazis so
so,
much.
so Karen,
That's the dark side.
Karen asked, "What's the title again?"
Oh, it's called Hamlet's Children.
I'll find it,
And
Karen. I'll find.
It's a great
the
title.
reason the reason for that name is because he and his teenage friends form a resistance group, a secret group that they call Hamlet's Children. Of course, Hamlet was
Oh, I
Danish,
love
so
it.
there's that. Yeah, so that's the
Well,
name of their resistance group.
I just downloaded, as you know, the 33-hour Martin Van Buren book you did in January of this
Oh
year.
yeah,
So I'll give that a listen, and maybe I'll move
well,
on to
thank you.
Hamlet's Children if I'm not fed up with you in 30 hours. Yeah.
It might be. That's a long. Yeah, they're both long books, but the Van Buren one is longer. I
But
do I do a
I
lot
will
of
tell I will
biography
tell
as
you.
well.
Do you listen to a lot of audiobooks as well?
Uh, Not as much as I used to before I got into it. I listened to quite a lot before I started doing it professionally, and now I'm actually so busy, I'm not listening as much as I wish I were,
I'm gonna
but I
recommend to
should.
you and all our watchers and listeners that you find time, like as Don mentions all the time, I go through walks through the park frequently, and when I'm either at the gym, which is 3-4 times a week, and walked, which is almost every day, I listen. That's my audiobook time.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
sure. Great time for it.
just because and because I'm in Manhattan, so I never drive anywhere. Everybody else, wherever you are,
Right.
probably drive. You can listen to books, but find topics, genres that interest you, and listen to everything in the genre you feel like. I try and bounce around, but I'm really into history, both
Mm,
world history, geopolitical history, American presidential history is a real big thing for me. So I'm very excited about Van. A lot of these lesser presidents, they were still the president, still interesting.
right. Oh, yeah.
You know,
Van
and so
Buren had a long career
oh my
outside of
God,
being president in other politics, yeah.
oh he was
He was like
he
the
was a kingmaker.
Oh, yeah, he was the New York
Kind of like Johnny
kingmaker
Heller.
for so many.
But I just want people to a lot of people want to do this, what we do for a living, and they
Sure.
don't listen. And I find that odd. It's like wanting
Curious.
to be an actor but never seeing theater.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Pardon.
But I do need to listen a little more lately. Yeah, I was a big fan before audiobooks took off. I mean, they were always popular, but not like now.
Yeah,
So
yeah, now
back,
it's yeah.
I used to listen to like a lot of the Stephen King books, narrated usually by someone else. Like Craig Wasson was one of my favorites. He did 11/22/63 for King. I think. God, what's that guy's name? Actor. He was in the remake of The Shining. Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue. Very,
I
very well known. He was on Wings. What's that
oh,
actor's name? He's a
Da
really good
Daly, Tim
narrator.
Daly?
No, the brother,
Oh,
the other lead.
damn it, I can't believe I
He's
came up with that
he's
one.
great.
Yeah.
He's great, but I can't remember his name now.
Oh,
But I
someone will
listen.
pop in. Someone will That's all right, it's all right. The the
Hang
the point of
hang
this
on. I'm gonna find Steven Weber. It's
there
Steven
you go,
Weber.
yeah. The
He's
point of this
another
show is
good
not
one.
to
Yeah.
put you on the spot. Not often
No,
anyway,
I found it. Thank God for Google.
yeah. Thank God for the Gulf of America on Google. Yeah.
So when you transitioned, like 10 years ago was a totally different animal than people who are starting today. If you had to start over again,
Mm.
what do you think would be a path that you'd recommend for somebody if they were just
Ooh,
starting out today?
I don't even know what it would be like to start out today. I mean, in a way, I'm still breaking in, honestly. I mean, I'm working a lot, but I still haven't worked for a number of companies. But I'm also a very bad self promoter. So I need to take advantage of, the Audionom and the other awards, and send out to people. I think I had a window when I first got in where I was meeting with some of those bigger publishers, and they were maybe they weren't as impressed, but I got in with enough of them that I'm now able to work pretty consistently, which is great. And sometimes with some independent authors too. There's one author I've worked with since the beginning, and she's very prolific, and she sends me every book she writes, and I think I've done 30 or 40 books for her
Yeah.
alone. And she
Yeah.
pays my rate, and we have a great relationship.
Is she the one who does
But
the Scottish Baird ones that you do a lot of?
yes, she writes the Highland romances, and she always has new characters and new series, and she's been great. Yeah, and she's a good writer, so that's no problem with just
Yeah, yeah.
continuing to do her work. Yeah.
So do I have it right that you hate accents?
No, I enjoy doing accents. I think that was, yeah. You're having a little fun with.
I warned you about how Don
I
does things, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
so how did you get into since now you contradicted me? How did you get
Uh,
into accents or why? And which ones are your favorites?
ooh, I don't know really. I've just always been fascinated by them. I've always had an ear for when, different vowel or consonant shifts in different regions of both English speakers, native and non-native speakers. I spent some time in England when I was really young. My dad was a Fulbright scholar at Cambridge, so we lived over there while he was studying. So when I was first learning to speak and read, I was actually in Cambridge and listening to a lot of BBC and children's records that were all from there. So I think I just kept a memory of at least the RP British from growing up, at least the
Yeah.
kind that was on TV and radio. Uh,
Yeah, but that's
and
not a
then
real
just
accent, is it?
not the BBC. No,
Oh,
well,
okay.
no, it's learned.
No.
Yes, but
It,
there are people who, there are people who grow up learning it and as the main accent, and then that is their accent. But it's a very small region of Britain that actually speaks that way.
Yeah, there's like 3
A
people in
lot of
Britain.
people, yeah. There's people who grow up in different regions and they have their native accent, and then they have their BBC voice,
Yeah, yeah.
so to speak. But yeah, so yeah, I feel like I've always known at least a few of the British accents from a really young age, and then I learned a bunch in school, and I was always fascinated. We had to do accent projects when we were in voice and speech, so I covered a bunch there. I was always fascinated by the subtle differences, like between Australian and New Zealand. There's some real differences there, but not most people wouldn't like pick up on
Y
it
I wanna
if you're not from there.
that's a great pick, Joanna and I are
Mm,
just absolutely we have BritBox and Acorn TV, have had for years. So,
mm,
they're streaming
mm.
services that give you not always the latest, but this so, on I think it's on Acorn, is the Brokenwood Mysteries. If you wanna get a
Okay,
New Zealand accent, there's at least 12, 13 seasons of the Brokenwood Mysteries, and it's
okay, that sounds cool.
Detective Mike Sheppard is our hero, but let's see, Detective Mike Sheppard. It's real close.
Right,
Detective Mike Sheppard. So you hear these guys, and it's quite interesting, and it's absolutely not Australian, and people think that,
right.
it's just totally different, and there's also, of course, there's great Australian programs as well, and then there's tons
Yeah,
of British
sure.
things. One of the great ways to really hone in
Mm.
on accents is to watch British programming or
Oh,
or
sure.
UK or Australian and any of those things because
And
that's kinda how that's who they are, and it's
yeah,
interesting, and you can hear the differences, and it really makes a difference if you're gonna play these characters I always recommend people wanna find an accent, watch the people from the go to a YouTube and
oh,
listen
yeah.
to a Danish person speak or something. It's so helpful.
It's so much more, available to us now
Yeah,
also,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you those shows you couldn't get a lot of the time when we were younger, and now there's YouTube channels with just regular people who are YouTubers
Oh, yeah.
just talking in their native dialect, and that's almost better than listening to an acting presentation because they're just speaking out randomly, naturally in their natural accent, and they're not putting. You don't know, like sometimes in a show, maybe people are doing accents themselves,
Yes.
But when you hear the people speak in their native dialect, you just know that's the real deal.
And one of the things you find, like, particularly in the UK television, BBC, is they put on these panel shows with witty
Mhm.
they're based on witty guests. That's all it is.
Yeah,
So if you could go to
like Graham
YouTube and watch
Norton. Yeah.
Would I Lie to You? It's absolutely
Mm.
hilarious. It's my favorite Brit, David Mitchell, is a great comic. He's in one team, he heads one team, and Lee May has the other team. They both have, David Mitchell speaks RP. He really does. Lee May sounds much more middle class, but their guests are from all over the place in Great Britain. So all these different accents come out, and it's quite fascinating because their host Rob Brydon is from Wales. So it's a lesson. And not only is it hilarious, it's called Would I Lie to You? If you find that on YouTube, it's funny and
I think I
yeah.
think I've heard of it. Yeah.
Oh, it's been on. It's these
Thank
shows.
you for
They
the
cost
reference.
nothing. There's no prizes. It's just funny. It's like QI. Did you ever see QI?
No.
Quite interesting. Another panel show. There's nothing but funny panel shows. I really waste a lot of my time in the booth. How long are you in the booth? 15 hours.
Every once in a while, so Lisa's recording a bunch of books, and I'll every once in a while kind of realize, oh, she's on YouTube watching something, and so I'll stick my head in. She's like, yeah, I'm trying to find this one character that I know I saw, and so
Yes.
she's going through 16 little clips trying to find the one voice that she kind of has in the back of her head so that she can find that reference. And so yes, everybody who's doing this seems to camp out on YouTube, and then they have to make excuses to their spouse who think, I go, well, you're just wasting time watching YouTube. She's like, no, I don't want.
I'm doing research, baby.
Yeah. Well, the danger
Yeah.
is the YouTube algorithm knows what you like. So
Right.
you look something up, and I see some Jiminy Glick stuff or something. So there's an hour gone.
Yep. By the way, so Karen has said, and I think she commends. I think this is for Paul, and it's fragrance of grass.
see it.
She
Oh,
corrected
yeah.
it in the next one, and she says, now here's an interesting topic, that you had a perfect French pronunciation, which I would have had too. I
Oh.
mean, obviously.
Oh yeah, soccer blue. Me too.
Yeah.
It's well, yeah, that's actually a very recent one. That's it's a translation of a French book. The guy who spent most of his life hunting, and it's about his hunting adventures in well, then he moved to the States, grew up in France, and he talked some of it's set there, some of it's set in the US and Canada.
Now,
But yeah, there are go ahead.
well, my question would be, because when you're in the UK, many people are going back. I mean, they'll take a weekend and go to France, and I mean, it's something that
Mhm.
it's like going to the Hamptons or something, I guess. But so, did you start your French accents while you were over as a young guy, or is it something you've
No,
taken on recently?
No, I started learning French at about age 10 or 11, just back here in the States. First, before it was even taught in school, I had some French primers or primer, I should say, and uh, and then started taking it in school. And it's funny. So I learned from a very young age the right pronunciation for French, but and I can still read it pretty well. But my comprehension when it's spoken to me, especially very fast, is still kind of crap. But I do know how to pronounce it very well if I have the text in front of me. So
At
I at
what
least
age
know
did you?
the French pronunciation.
At what age did you realize that Pepe Le Pew wasn't accurate?
uh, Probably not till I was 40, 41.
Hey
Pepe Le
Don,
Pew.
what did Ray Conley? Did he have something
Oh,
important?
Ray had a good question too. Sorry.
Oh, I see it.
Ray doesn't generally say anything important. Let's see what he did here.
So, Paul, what's your daily schedule like for recording? Because I heard you do about 15 finished hours a day. Is that accurate?
Yeah, about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I record speaking very fast, and then I use the tools to slow down my reading so that I can get in as many hours per day as possible.
Because
No,
that's the metric that we all live by, is how many hours can you get? How many hours can you be in the booth?
do you know what's funny is I actually tried that once just to see. Not I wasn't going to use it, but I was just wondering, well, what the hell would that sound like? And I tried to narrate at double speed and then slow it down to regular speed after the fact just to hear. And it sounds odd. You
Yeah.
can't put your finger on why, but it just sounds like something's off. Yeah. Anyway, to answer the actual question, uh, I'm very bad at organizing my time. I like to my schedule one day might be radically different from the next day, or I might have to take a full day off if I'm doing something else. So I just like having a deadline, like when does this have to be done? And then I kind of build my preparation around that. I have an average of I want to get maybe 2 to 2.5 finished hours done in a day, and I block out a certain number of days that I think I can manage that when I'm taking a deadline, and then I will space it out as it needs to be done. So it might be I might be recording in the morning one day, I might be recording at midnight another day. Uh, I do like having the flexibility. So I've always been a bit of a haphazard uh, preparer. I mean, I do my research, I do my reading, and then I spend time in the booth. And I do many mistakes that might have been acceptable, but I'll go back and scrub them and do them again because I just didn't think it sounded quite right. So I'm kind of a perfectionist in the recording stage. Uh, but yeah, as far as blocking out my time, I'm terrible at that. But I am good at generally meeting deadlines. So if I have the deadline, I can make it. As long as I'm careful not to overextend myself with too many titles at once. I know realistically, if I have a certain length for a book, then I want to take this many days to do it, and then I allow a couple extra days for contingency, and then I say, okay, I can have it by this date.
May I ask
So
you
yeah,
a follow-up, if I may? I know that
yeah,
you and I both do lit RPG, the
mm,
quests, the fantasies, those sort of things.
I've done some.
What
Yeah.
I found about I'm doing at least 2 different series, and I've done some other I've done there are it's almost always a trilogy and frequently far more than a trilogy. And once you've done
Oh yeah.
one, let's say here's the Sword Chronicles and then the Rapier Chronicles or whatever, so it's some different thing. Once you've done one, it seems like and then you get, let's say, Tantor or
Hmm.
maybe somebody will get hold of you. Hey, can you or the woman who does your Scottish Baird things, she might send you a thing. So in the middle, you do a book, and then you move on, and you've got your schedule worked out, and suddenly, at least in my experience, book 2 or book 3 of these series just comes to you. No one set
Hmm.
it up because I don't want to. So I keep getting
Ah,
the next book, and it's always in the middle of a schedule. I've got my schedule worked out. I'm totally fine. Got a little
mm,
free time, and then bang, this 500 word, sword and sorcerer thing shows up that I have to do because
mhm.
it's book 3 or 4 or 5 in the series. Does that happen to you?
Sure. I I've had occasional things where yeah, something comes in the middle of projects I've booked, and then I try to squeeze that one into the others, and then time
Yeah,
gets tight because I never want to turn it down, if it's on a hard schedule.
yeah,
So I try to allow some extra time for that. Uh, I don't get them like just directly thrown to me though. I mean, if there's a sequel or a triple or a fourth or a fifth, I'll probably get the offer and be asked, "Can I do it?" Uh, rather than, are you saying you just get them and they say do this, or do they? Yeah, wow. I
yeah.
don't think I've ever had it like put to me
Here's
that
the
way.
next one. I'm thinking, oh crap. Like,
I mean,
it's
it's
tough.
great because we all want to work, and I don't like to turn anything down, but sometimes I do have to push
Let-
something forward
let's
for
jump
it.
on that last statement.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to turn anything down.
Mm,
I think all actors feel that, and Don, from an acting and
mhm,
musician standpoint, you don't want to turn down a gig because that's what you live for. The
Right.
gig, to get the next one, to get the next one. It's what we want. I'm here to say that if you can't fit in whatever the gig is in your schedule, just because whatever, you need to be strong enough, confident enough to negotiate and say, I can't do this right now. Here's when I can do it, and you need to say no, I can't, and be willing to. I mean, I know that my Scott Brick, Sean Pratt, they both have workshops on the power of no as a
mhm.
negotiating tool, and I think it's important to understand that. You have to say, listen, this is what I can. You have to recognize what you can and can't do, and be willing to say no. Do you find that? I
Yeah.
mean,
Uh, yes, if I'm truly not available, I say that, and I can't possibly do it for that time frame, then I will be upfront about it, if it's just
yeah.
too much.
I've never
That
been kicked out of someone's office or never gotten another job
Mhm,
from the same just because I couldn't do what
mhm.
they asked.
Right, right. Yeah, they're pretty good about that. I've only had like one or two times where I've had to pass on something for scheduling reasons. Uh, Generally, my work is just balanced out enough that I mean it's worked out pretty well. Or they're on their side they're flexible enough that if I say, well, I can't have this for 2 or 3 months, they're usually fine with that. Uh,
Yeah.
but once in a while something comes up and the deadline is very soon, and I'm like, I'm already booked, so I don't think I could possibly squeeze this in.
Now, you recently moved from New York City all the way across the United States to Sacramento.
That's right.
Now, a few questions about that. One, why? And then let's go back. And then also, did you need to let your clients know that, hey, I'm going to be gone for, and how long a chunk of time did you need to put everything together? And was it a bitch to put your studio back together to get the same sound you had back home? So I
Oh,
take
it's a
any part
lot.
of those.
Yeah, it's a big thing moving all the way across the country. But I had done it the last time I'd done it. I was 18. I was off to college, so I had lived in Boston and then New York for most of my adult life, all of my adult life. So the decision we talked about for at least 5 years, my wife Christine and I, she was definitely ready to leave New York. She had it. We were here a long time to, or there a long time together, but we had a tiny apartment. I had rent stabilization, so it was pretty affordable, which was great. But it was old. We had occasional building problems with like leaky pipes or
Yeah, stuff.
the bugs. Yeah. So, and my collection of stuff just kept growing. I had a decent little studio in there, but it was cramped and not ideal. So
Does
lots of
Christine do this too?
things. No, no. She did go to school as a theater major back in college, but she never pursued it as a career.
Ah,
But yeah, but she does love the arts, and that's kind of probably why we are so well matched because she does enjoy all this. So, yeah, we she was ready to move probably before me. It took about 5 years of me coming around to the idea. Now, my family is actually out in the Bay Area, so they're not far away. We've been out here once or twice a year for the last 20 years. So
mhm.
she certainly knew the state. She knew she loved it. She knew she could live here. I knew I could live here. I had worked 4 summers in Sacramento actually as an actor doing Sacramento Music Circus, hired from New York, but
Oh,
out here 4 summers in a row, way back in my 20s, and loved being here for a few months a year. So I knew I could live here and deal with the intense summer heat, which is routinely above 100 degrees. Um, so we looked at Sacramento because it's more affordable, but it still has all the trappings of a larger city. You don't feel like you're in the sticks or anything. It's not like moving to a tiny town. We're only, 5 miles from downtown right now, but we're
mhm.
in a very suburban neighborhood, which is
Are you
very
are you in a
quiet
house
and
now?
serene. We're in an apartment complex, but it's one of those, it was built as condos.
Uh-huh.
So you're in a bunch of like spread out, 2-story units. I mean, our unit is 1 story. There's someone
Right,
above
right.
us, and there's people across from us, but it's much bigger. It's not too much more than we were paying in New York on my stabilized apartment, but we have more. I think we have 3 times the space
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
used to have.
Was it
There's
hard? Was
other
it hard to get
costs.
used to I mean,
It,
you live near Astoria, which had
yeah,
stuff
in
just
fact,
everywhere you
yeah,
went.
in
It's a
Queens.
it's a busy happening area.
Oh yeah,
Now you're in the
yeah.
suburbs.
We walked out of our apartment in Astoria, and the supermarket was literally across the street.
Yeah.
The bars were like a block away. The restaurants were all walking distance. So it's a little bit of a change there. But now we have a new car, which is we love. We have a park across the street from us on the river that we can just walk to and go for like the trail goes 20, 30 miles
Wow.
one direction, 5 miles the other, and we could just walk along the river if we want to get outdoors and just be in nature. So that's nice. And then we're near a bunch of commercial areas. We just have to drive 5 minutes. And Sacramento has so many great restaurants and places to go. I mean, it's kind of the hidden jewel, I think, of California because everyone thinks of San Francisco and LA, maybe San Diego.
No one
You
thinks of
know,
LA.
Sac. No one thinks of LA. But
Everyone in
sorry,
LA
Don.
is trying to move out, by the way.
Right? That's the thing. But Sacramento is still it still has a bit of a small town feel, even though it has all the stuff you'd want in a bigger city. And you're close to the mountains, you're close to the Bay Area if you need to get there, and the ocean. And Chris and I have been doing all these side trips recently. I had a book that was scheduled for a couple weeks ago that got pushed and to months down the line. And I was at first I was a little annoyed because suddenly I didn't have that work, and I like my schedule to be full. But it freed up some time for us to go explore. So we took a bunch of side trips to the redwoods, to Yosemite. We just got back from there to Tahoe. Uh, yeah, all over just to enjoy the beautiful, part of California in the springtime where you don't have all the tourists yet for the summer. So we went to the state parks, the national parks. Yeah.
Is there
So
a community of audiobook actors near you?
there is a small number that live here. I think the one I know best is Amy Rubinate. We still actually have to get together. We've been meaning to hang out. She lives out a little farther out in the suburbs of Sacramento, and she gave me a few names of some other narrators who live in the area who I don't really know personally, but I think we're hooked up on Facebook. So maybe at some point we can do a Sacramento narrators get together.
Don's
So
wife,
the one I
Lisa.
know is Amy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, Don, wait, but bring up Lisa's comment first, because just in case Paul wants his car detailed.
Oh, great. I see that. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, we may need a
Gotta
auto
promote the
detailing
family
eventually.
businesses, you know? I
There's a
mean,
picture of her with the youngest son right there, so that kid's really aggressive.
Aw.
Okay,
actually,
sorry, go to
So
Ray.
I got a little off topic with my recent events, but yeah, I'll go back to the move if you
Oh,
like.
it's fine.
So yeah, around November 2024 was when we seriously started considering moving, and we talked about this a minute ago or before, Johnny. There was a number of factors, everything from we had just gotten rid of a very old car, bought a new Toyota, and then had some issues with the New York DMV because the
Right.
dealer we sold our old car to didn't return the plates to New York, so that car was still registered in our name but the plates had been destroyed and we had to go through all this hassle at the New York DMV because they're sending us the threatening letters saying we're going to suspend your license. Your car has no insurance on it anymore. I'm like, we don't own the car anymore. I think the car was sold for scrap metal. Uh,
Wow.
so we sold it to a Toyota dealer, the same one we bought the new car from. So I feel like they should have known the rules in,
I
you would
but they
feel
hope.
a
didn't
You would hope.
apparently.
tangent coming up here.
I got a question coming up
Anyway,
from
no.
Ray here that's pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
Do you
All
produce
right.
any of your own audiobooks or do you just send raw files to publishers? And the follow up, if you produce any, what tasks do you outsource?
I'm pretty much, except for that one author who I started with and I'm still doing books for. Everything else is due for publishers, so I'm just recording raw audio and sending it to them, and they do the editing and mastering and proofing. And but then I have the one author who I started on ACX with years ago, and actually now some of her books are being done, like her early books are getting redone through some publishers. So Tantor, for example, re produced her first audiobook
With
and
you?
she requested that it be with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this time around. So I did that one for Tantor, but everything else that for her I still do uh, on my own, just like I started with. And of course, now I know what I'm doing a little better than I did when I got started. But
Yeah.
so now it's kind of a breeze. So I still self produce those. I have it, I have my mastering chain, and and the whole deal. I know what works for my sound, and so I do still self produce those. Uh, that's about uh, once every 4 months or so, I would say.
So what tasks do you outsource in your own production then? What do you do versus what others do?
I don't. Well, I don't really outsource anything. I've been doing it for so long. I just do
You
it
you
now.
you
The
don't send
time
it
I
out for
should have out.
proofing?
No, I self-proof actually. Maybe I should. I know people say don't proof your own stuff. I do know the pitfalls, but I do go back and I do a full listen and proofing along with the audio, also to catch for audio errors and any glitches in the audio. Uh, so I make sure to do it. I'm very much like I like keeping my hands on everything myself. That's the same with research. Some people on nonfiction, they outsource the research. I can't do that. I want to have done it all myself. So I know there's great researchers out there, and that would save me some time, and I could pay them. But I like doing my own research too. It's just so I can go back and
Yeah.
if there is ever an issue, I can say, well, I found 4 sources that say this, and I have had to push back on some proofers. Like, what is the town in Illinois? It looks like Cairo, like Egypt, but it's pronounced
Cairo.
Cairo. And I had provided this in the research list, and I still got a correction back saying Cairo. And I'm like, no,
No.
no, you didn't read my research file.
You
Stuff
know
like
what's
that.
weird? Even though
Yeah.
you do your own, you spend time doing research, and we've all, everybody listening, everybody watching, and we all do a lot of research. And what happens is, and let's say it's even a publisher who's done all the research, or you paid people to look it up, so you know that what you're saying is exactly how to say it.
Hmm.
Someone on Audible will say, "I really hated all the mispronunciations," and you know there aren't any. But
Right.
you can't respond. There's no way to write that
Right.
guy back, dear distressed in
Right.
Philadelphia, bugger off. I got everything right. You can't, there's no response. So what happens is, here's you, did all the work, did everything right, feeling great, and because some jerk off somewhere said you didn't say it right,
Right.
it just hangs there forever. And every time you think of that book, you're going to think of that one person who said, he should have said Cairo, Illinois. And they're wrong. And
Right. In this
it
case, yeah.
just sticks in your craw.
Well, I
I
like
just
all
thought
the
I'd
people that
It
mispronounce
does.
Heller.
Hello.
Yeah.
LR. Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't know it was Norwegian, Johnny.
yeah.
LR.
That's right. I'm off to Greenland to fight for our independence. Yeah.
I was gonna say, Johnny, you bring up a good one. I could tell this story real quick
We have 15
because
minutes. You can tell it slow. Yeah.
okay. I mean, I've done a number of books for a very famous fantasy author who has had her books done by dozens of other narrators and publishers, audio publishers. So there is no one has ever gotten, say, a master list or whatever. I mean, I got the pronunciations of the characters and all that stuff, fine. But there is a word of in the English language that is in her books repeatedly, and the only pronunciation for it on Merriam-Webster, I'll tell the word. It's Collegium, and my instinct was collegium, but I was like, let me look this up, and it says collegium, and then I double check it, and I'm on lots of YouTube videos. Scholars use it for the most part, and they're all saying collegium as well. It's an inner group of knowledgeable people.
No, it all.
So and you in a council. Yeah, it's a know-it-all council. But in any case, I recorded the books using the pronunciation collegium. Tons of reviewers or listeners
Yeah.
hate that I said it that way because then there is an alternate pronunciation. There is collegium, and it's if you go to a different dictionary, both pronunciations are up there, and collegium and collegium are both there. But I'm like, when I listen to the Uglish clips,
Yeah.
there's so many of the scholars are saying collegium, and I'm like, I bet they're the ones who really know how to say it too, because they use it in their daily lives.
Right.
So I say it collegium in the whole series, and just the listeners that they don't care that I did 100 characters with 20 accents and did this massive 30-hour narrative and do it, I think really well. They just care that I said collegium as
Yeah.
collegium,
Yeah.
and they can't get past it.
Did I get the right word
It's
up there
like
in
nothing I've ever
in
seen.
the
Yes.
comment? Did I get the right
Yeah.
word?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
I don't know if they've changed. I think it should still be the same pronunciation.
No one knows what it is. It's like, here,
Sometimes
hand me that collegium, will you? Yeah.
First off,
sometimes they update their pronunciations.
Yeah, but
Let
here's
me
the
see if
thing.
it's
First off, somebody like
it's
me
still
has
there.
never
It's
heard
still
of
the
the
same.
word. I've never used it in a. You'd say, Don, please use colloquium in a sentence. I'd go, what in the world is a colloquium? I don't know. Never heard of it.
It's a
Yeah.
group
Anyway.
of friends at college, a collegium. No,
Okay. It says a group in
no, it's
which
not.
each
No, I made
member
that
has
up. That's not what it is.
approximately equal power and authority. That's me and my
Yeah,
dog, I guess.
yeah. And there on Merriam-Webster, you'll see there's either collegium or collegium, but it's in both cases a hard G.
Yeah.
And it even gives the full etymology of the word.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
now, here's the thing: if you go to dictionary.com, you're going to get a different answer. But
I
if
have
you
a
listen
question
to
for
the
both of
clips
you.
of people,
Do
that's
you
where you'll
have
get
do you so
collegium.
when you have a word that comes up, what's your first instinct to go to find the quote correct pronunciation? Like what you most people will have
Mm.
their first dictionary, second dictionary. Do you have a list?
It is wide and varied depending on what I'm looking up. If it's an English language word, I will go to the dictionaries first. And usually, the reason I'll go to Merriam-Webster first is because that's the one I know my proofers are using first. And I'm like, if there's a variance between the dictionaries, why don't I just use the one that they're going to look at first? That way, we don't have a altercation about it. Then, if it's
I like to put the word in, just like,
mhm,
collegium pronounce. I write collegium
mhm,
pronunciation or
there you go.
meaning, and then a whole bunch of
You can
dictionaries
do
and a
that
whole
too.
bunch of things that pop up.
Yes.
I go to Forvo,
I
I go to Youglish. Although Youglish is
Oh,
not
me, I love
exact
you.
because if someone on
Right.
Youglish is saying it, well, it could be a video of them mispronouncing it because no one gives
Yeah.
a rat's ass. That's not what it's about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, Youglish and Forvo are both prone to errors, as
Yes.
I've found. But
Yeah.
if you can find a collegium of people who say it all the same way, you're probably on the right track with a
Yeah.
majority
Yeah.
pronunciation, and then by region too.
Is
Obviously UK and the US have many different pronunciations of words.
and
And I'm always trying to be careful that even those minor words in British English are that have the different pronunciation, vitamin
yeah.
and vitamin, or you know, aluminium and aluminum,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
forth.
And we
But
say
yeah,
truck and they say lorry. It's just a different pronunciation.
lorry and
Yeah.
yeah,
But
or curb, which is said the same but spelled differently.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. But you can
Yeah.
also I recommend if you're looking at, geographical place names like Cairo, Illinois,
Mm.
you just look up how do you say Cairo, Illinois, and you'll find there's
Yeah.
always some newspaper, it's Michigan or Wisconsin or any state. People who here's how to pronounce our places, and they'll give you all the things,
Right.
particularly Michigan, which has a lot of weird ass pronunciations.
Oh
And
yeah.
they'll list them for you, but you need to make sure if you're doing
Oh
fiction
yeah.
or nonfiction, you've got to say the name of the place the way the locals say it. And you know what I do? A
Exactly.
lot of times I'll call the local library in the town
Right.
and
That's
I'll
a
ask,
great
"How
way
do you
to
say
go.
this?
Yeah.
How do you say that?" They're happy to help.
That's a great way to go too. Yeah. I've
Yeah.
yeah.
And just as a side note, Lisa does this thing that I think is somewhat brilliant. That if she comes up with a colloquium that has two acceptable ways of saying it, and she's not sure, and sometimes she's like, in the moment she recorded it, she will actually record the line and have it
Mm,
saved so that it's in the same voice, the same moment, and
mm,
she'll just
mhm,
set it aside, knowing that she gets the one she thinks is quote right, and then
mhm.
she recorded it, but since she did it within 2 minutes of each other, she's got it saved there, and then if they come back and complain and she doesn't wanna argue with them, she'll
It
just
says the
put in
other one,
the
yeah.
other one, she's already got
That's
it, and so
I have done I have done that on occasion, yeah, with alternate pronunciations. In this case, with collegium, it was a frequent word in the book, so it would mean doing
yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah,
120 takes of each line,
right,
or
right.
120 different lines.
Yeah,
So
not
maybe that wouldn't have
practical
worked
for
there.
something that's the title of the book, okay?
Right. But I have done it for those single instances where I just couldn't be sure, and I'll just tell them I have two alternate takes here. Use which
Yeah.
one you like. Yeah.
Are there real I wanna see if there's more questions, but one thing I like to do a lot on the retake part Once I've done a
Mm,
thing and I get a retake on it, if I disagree with the retake, sometimes I just won't do it. But if it's an acting choice,
right.
if it's a pronunciation choice, I say, well, I think I'm right, but I'll leave. I said,
Hmm.
let me leave that there. But here's two other ways, and I'll give them both. I
Hmm.
said, pick the one that works, so that way the guy, the reviewer on Audible, I'll get the blame for it, but I didn't make the choice sometimes. Like, here's the three
Right.
things I've heard. Plug in the one that seems to work for you, because I don't want to always make the choice.
You're right.
So,
We always get the blame though, no matter who's
Oh yeah,
doing
it's
the
our
work
fault.
behind the scenes.
well,
Yeah.
first off, Heller deserves it, but that's a different discussion. So Johnny's asked a question here, not Johnny. Another Johnny number one asked the question. What are the top 3 rookie mistakes when self-producing your first audiobook? Asking for myself.
Hmm.
Now, hey, I do like for the first time. Everyone else goes, well, asking for a friend.
Yeah, forgetting to hit record is number one. Yeah.
I'll tell you, I need to go back to my first years because I think we were talking about that a little bit, how I got started, and probably that was the time when I should have been doing all the stuff that I don't do now, but it would have helped me then. Uh, I should have probably had uh, an expert come in and set up my studio space, for example, and instead of kind of futzing with it myself until I got it right. But I was working in a very cramped apartment in New York City. It was tricky, finding the right microphone, all the stuff, the right equalizer settings for my voice, all these things. I did it more by trial and error, and of course I wouldn't send anything in until I was satisfied with it. But it did take a lot of time on my end, just like figuring out what the hell I was doing, which probably could have been fixed if I had just, consulted with someone like Don, for example. And actually, we were in communication on Facebook back then. I don't know if you remember way back when I was starting Don, but I think we'd had some conversations in the groups
Yeah,
there.
and it's a different world
Uh,
today that 10 years ago when you
yeah.
started. First off, well, I think we had a Facebook group that had maybe 400 people back 10 years ago,
Mm,
and today it's, 10,000 people, seriously, over
yes.
10,000. So so now you can get a
Yeah.
lot of bad information very quickly. Okay,
Yeah.
Right.
But Johnny,
I think
I think you need to pay attention of there's performance issues, tech issues, and
mm,
marketing issues.
there it is.
hmm.
So those are the three
Yes.
headliners. Which mistake hurts the most? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
A lot of people jump in and start
Mm,
performing with no
mm,
performance background, training, or understanding the differences in audiobook performance versus any other kind of work. So that's a performance mistake. A tech mistake is as Paul mentioned, is not having the thing set right. So you spend all your time and realize, oh my, you have to redo things. Redoing things because of an error you made because you didn't get it set up first is heartbreaking. And it's a shitty
mm,
lesson to learn and a bad way to learn lessons.
mm,
And marketing, of course, you know, picking the right book, working with your
mhm,
rights holder, deciding how it's going to sell, making sure. Jeffrey Kafer used to say a lot. If you do a shitty book, you're going to have experience in shitty books. So you can't
mhm,
just take a bad book and do it because you have the experience. And I
mhm,
agree with them. I think that there's there's a lot of, I don't know if there's 3 biggest mistakes. Anyone can be destructive, but part of the process is learning, which is great.
mhm,
But if the mistakes you made or make are so great, they take you completely out of the joy of this. A lot of people don't like this because they don't have fun, and I would argue that, what did you do? How did you start? So there's a lot of things, Johnny, and I don't know where you are in your career, but coaching from a marketing kind of person like a Tom Deere, coaching from a tech person like this fellow here, Don Baarns, coaching from a performance coach. Paul, do you do performance coaching?
I do not, although I've been a guest coach on some places like Chris Chula's
Yeah, yeah.
studio, Leonardo Audio. And I was worried that was one of my first times doing that, and I'm like, I've never been a coach before, even though I think I know what I'm doing. I'm not sure what I'll have to say, but then when I got on there, I found, oh, yeah,
You
I
put in,
actually
yeah.
have a lot I could contribute to each of these people that were coming and doing an excerpt. And
So,
nothing that
yeah,
felt
Johnny, find a
yeah,
performance coach. And I mean, it doesn't
yeah,
cost a lot, and the money you put in, it's all tax write-offs. It's also it's gonna save you money down the road. You don't people have already done this. They've already made the mistakes.
yeah, mhm,
And unlike a lot of other fields, everyone in our business, most of the time, is happy to help you not make the same mistakes. We're trying to create an easier path. I don't feel you have to go through
yes.
the same crap I went through, you know, to get started and to work. And we're here to help in a lot of ways. And this Don runs about 17 different Facebook groups, all the ACX groups, and there's all this information. You just put in the search bar what you want to know. There's so much stuff.
Yeah, and it's different for. I always tell people with the tech stuff, if your tech is great, nobody cares. But if
Right,
the tech is bad, it can cause you to not get a book because your tech is so bad. So when it's great or when it's doing the right thing, it's transparent, and the first thing they're going to pay attention to is the performance. If the tech stuff
yeah,
needs to be at a certain level to where it becomes transparent, and that's the goal of all the tech stuff, is it becomes transparent. The performance is the most important thing, and if that's
oh,
wrong, you
yeah,
have no chance. But if the tech stuff is bad, it can lose you jobs. But great tech doesn't win you any jobs. It just is. They're kind of considered, okay, he had
that's
breakfast.
the standard.
Yeah,
Right.
no one's excited that I had breakfast. What they're kind of like, well, hopefully he ate something, but that's how that works out. Okay.
I I knew that when I was first starting out that I must have been on the right track because I was getting gigs even while I was concerned about my tech side. But I was making the adjustments, and one of the best compliments that I got from a different guy who does that side was I was telling him what my equipment was, and he's like, "I my God, I've never heard that microphone sound that good before."
Oh, wow.
Because it was an early mic of mine, a well known kind of one that gets slammed, rightfully so. But I had
A
found the
K-Tel
right
a
setup.
K-Tel karaoke mic? Yeah.
Yeah, it was Mr. Microphone.
Yeah.
Hey, good looking. We'll be back to pick you up later. Yeah, but no, it was one of those low end USB mics that
That's a
I
line from a
had found a
commercial.
way to make it work for me.
Yeah, but you
Yeah,
had an acting background, didn't you?
and I had the acting background, and
Oh.
so yeah, and I've obviously upgraded a couple more times since then to much better stuff. Even this one I'm using today is an old mic that I used to record on like 8 years ago, but I put it in as a backup because
Yeah.
my webcam mic was not
Mm.
perfect for today.
Popeil,
But
pocket microphone, yeah.
Yeah.
so yeah, so I got that compliment from a guy who liked the sound, even though it was still kind of a low end piece of equipment. And I had found that I could get the gigs with the tech. Not suggesting people do this, but I am saying, you know, uh, the performance is the biggest thing, I think, and the tech should be there too. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah,
well, uh, I,
as we come to near the end of our hour here, but first, it's been great having you here, Paul. It's nice chatting with you.
oh, thank you.
Been too
It's been
long, my
great.
friend. What's coming up? What's the big thing coming up? What are you working on now?
Right now, the biggest thing I've got is 5 books by Charles E. Gannon, who is a really famous sci-fi writer. He already has some famous books out there. He's continuing one series in sci-fi that I picked up. He is starting a new fantasy series called Vortex of Worlds that I'm doing at least the first 2 books on. Uh, so it's a kind of an honor to
Great.
take that up for him. And yeah, I'm just looking for a few more gigs. Ironically, it's actually slowed down for me for the first time in like 10 years. Ironically, the year I get my first Audi knob. So
Yeah.
if any publishers are watching this and the ones I haven't worked for yet and you want to hire me,
Yeah.
yeah, give me a look
Don, what do you got
because I
coming?
still yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paulie. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I no, I work for some wonderful publishers, but there's still a few out there. Maybe I submitted to you guys too early in my career, back in like the mid 2010s. But with the 400 books now, I think you'll like what I've got out.
It's
Yeah, but that's a testament that just because, see, though they may not even know you have availability, and now you, as a marketing
True.
thing, you get to go back and market to all those ones that you want to work with, and that would be an ongoing thing. Even Johnny, constant. I know he says,
Very
"Oh, there's,
true.
somebody I hadn't kept in contact with," but all the stuff comes through relationships that people have, and then they do see your
Yes.
work as well. But relationships are huge in this business, and continue to develop that. If you're newer to the business, you can't get away without it. It's a people business first. Like every other business, people want to work with people they know and trust and like. So, Johnny, what
Oh,
do you
yeah.
have coming
I
up
would
here?
I've got Paul Rubin. I just did a workshop with my friend Sean Pratt, and Paul Rubin and I are looking to do one in. We're thinking about Philly or DC in June or July. So you let us know which one you'd like. If you like that at all, I have the New England Narrator Retreat, October 13th through 16th. We actually now have 2 singles on site that we didn't have before, and we still have some doubles to share and offsite stuff. That's happening. I've got some great books coming up, something new, but from Todd Goldberg, he uses me all the time. So a lot of stuff. Also, Don and I worked together on some videos, training that he has. Donnie Baarns has done some stuff. I've done some stuff. And real quick, if you like this show, please comment. Little likes are swell, but comments really help get the notice out there. Also, if you'd like to be a guest on our show, let us know.
Yep.
Because we're happy to chat with yeah, we're happy with Paul, and look at Paul, for God's sakes. I'm just saying, so the door's open.
I
Yeah.
know. I don't know how you picked me.
Everybody else said no. No.
You're right.
And Karen, we'll give the final thing. Karen here says, "It's great to see you after listening to your book. See you with 400 books." So that's the thing that happens. People,
Thanks,
they've
Karen.
never seen you, even though they've heard you, and that happens for a lot of our guests, and it gives them a chance to go,
Sure.
"Hey, there's a real person behind all this stuff."
A
So you are
handsome,
I
really
know her
likable
name.
fellow too.
Thank you. Oh, you mean yourself?
No, you.
Just
I'm
kidding.
talking to you.
all
I
right.
do know Karen slightly through social media. So, but yes, I don't. It's so. Thank you, Karen, for being a fan and listener, and listening to even "Fragrance of Grass," which just came out. So I know you must be a fan. So I appreciate that a lot.
All right. We appreciate you having you here. And Johnny, we'll talk again next week. Do you happen to know who next week's guest is? Because I don't have
Yeah,
it.
no, I'd have to look it
All
up. I
right.
forgot.
So as always, we appreciate you being here. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like, pass it on to other people. Post this wherever you can. We appreciate you being here every week. And of course, we're excited and we'll see you on the wires. Have a great day.
I